Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. I'm your host, Kira Dent, and I had this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. Hello, Dental 18 listeners. This is Kira, and you guys, Voices of Dentistry. I stepped out of my comfort zone and I started interviewing people because, I do own a podcast and I'm at a podcasting convention and I was a chicken and didn't want a podcast. But I'm super excited because I was chatting with my good friend, Richard Lowe. If you guys don't check out Shared Practices, go check them out. Their podcast is incredible. Richard and I knew each other from Midwestern when I taught at the dental college, and one of his good friends. So of course, if Richard recommends this person, I trust them instantly. So I'm super excited to welcome Zach. He is the co-owner of Apex Payment Solutions. And you guys, I'm kind of like stressed to bring on somebody from merchant services because when I was an office manager, this was a world that I didn't know. I felt like they were all sleazy, nothing personal, Zach, but like
no
we'll just call
taken.
it, we'll call it all out. So I'm super excited though, because Zach and I chatted off air before I was willing to do a podcast, and he's super cool. And we also talked about cars. So I even liked him better because we're both car people. But Zach, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Good. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. Obviously, Richard Lowe loves you. So this is that's a huge compliment right there. So tell us a little bit about you, how you got into this. And I also love that you're a dentist doing this too.
Well, I'm a very lovable person, so that's why Richard loves me.
You are. I liked you a lot already.
So the way I got into this, like you said, I am a practicing dentist. I've been in dentistry for 15 years, spent 5 years in the Air Force, and then 5 years as an associate before I bought my practice, I think, in December of 2013.
Okay.
But the way we got into merchant services is when my partner and I bought our dental practice. Like we were talking about, I mean, money's always tight, right? But money's always especially tight when you just put down a big down payment on a practice. So we were looking to reduce our overhead, looking at the vendors that the previous owners had used. And in the process, we were interviewing merchant services companies.
Oh my gosh. I remember that day so vividly as an office manager. We just bought the practice. We had to switch because we didn't know, last doctor was doing it. I remember truly, this is not even trying to be buttering you up. That was one of the hardest decisions as an office manager to make because I'm like, I am so naive at this. How do I know who's right, who's wrong, who's good, who's bad? I have no idea.
Well, and I was the same way. I didn't have a background in it, and all the information was super confusing. And you're right. It seems dirty almost.
It did feel dirty because they're all coming in and we can get you a great deal. And I'm like, how do I know if this is a good deal or not?
Well, and then if you're what are your rates? They're like, well, I don't know. What the last guy say he'd charge you because I'll beat his rate. And so that's what
what is this?
Yeah. So that's what it came down to for me. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. If everybody can beat the last guy's rate, where's the bottom?
What is the bottom?
So what
I love that you think like a dentist because all dentists are like, hang on, what's the bottom line on this? How do we figure this out? How do we do this for a better way?
How can I be super cheap? And
I love these dentists. You guys are my little favorites and I just love you guys so much.
So I was fortunate enough to have a friend from my military days that was a commercial banker and started his own merchant services company in the restaurant bar industry in Charleston, South Carolina. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I know you can't do this in the dental space, but can you at least help me understand it?
Yes.
He's like, well, why can't I do it? Why can't we do it in the dental space? I'm like, well, one of the companies told me that I had to use a dental specific processor.
Oh, stop.
He's like, it's credit card processing. Credit card processing is the same for everything. So what we did is we actually ended up kind of beta testing it in my office for a year and then expanded it to some of my friends' offices to just see, can we do it? And what we found out is, oh my goodness, nothing is different. It's all just credit card processing. Now, there's certain things you have to think about, but it's pretty much basically the same.
Sure. Okay. And I do want to know those nuances that you do need to think about. But can you explain a little bit? Because I did not know. And we have a lot of team members that listen to this. We have a lot of doctors. Talk us through when you say merchant services. I know what that means now because I had to do a lot of research on it and understand it. But what exactly are you talking about when you talk about merchant services? What is that? And because there's all those fees and everything when you get into this. So can you just explain a little bit so people at least know a baseline them so they don't feel like idiots when they have to talk about this like you and I did?
So no matter who the merchant services company is, there's a interchange rate that all the credit card companies charge.
So like
It's always the same no matter who your processor is.
right. And so what he's talking about is like we get a credit card company from whomever. There's like all these people out there that you can buy your credit card terminal from.
Right.
And then for them to process your credit card, there's this interchange fee, correct?
Correct.
And it's the same across the board for everyone. But then all these companies have like all these weird things and they send you these bills that have all these weird like fees associated that you don't even, I feel like it's speaking a different language.
It totally is. Totally
And
is.
you read this and you're like, I don't even know what I'm being charged. So I guess I just pay this bill and hopefully they're not screwing me over.
And that's exactly what most people do. And that's why dentists get taken advantage of. But what the merchant services company does is they facilitate the transaction, secure the transaction, and get you your funds in the bank account. That's what
Okay.
our role is.
So like the person who we swipe the credit card in the office and then the way it goes from that swipe to our bank, to the doctor's
Exactly.
bank account, that zone.
That's what we do. And so
Okay.
that's what we charge for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what we do differently is we're truly a payment solutions company, because what I wanted to do when we created the company, so after the 2 years of beta testing, I was like, here's the feature I want. I want my patients to be able to pay from our website. I want to be able to run automated payment plans because my front desk hated making those calls every week to like run down Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith, you have a $50 balance. Can we go ahead and run that today?
Oh, for
And
the love
and then
those days.
drags it out, and then you inevitably don't connect with that patient, or they forget their credit card, or you forget to call that person, and so your
Or
collections
you're the
go
office
down.
that has like a payment plan that needs to be run on dates 1 through 30 of the month. I'm like, why did you do that to yourself? Just do 2 dates at like. But we don't think
but we
about
have-
those things.
But we have a solution for that too, because we have an
Yes.
automated plan where it
Yes.
can run any day of the week, and it happens automatically.
Automatically. I like the automatically. But I do love that you said having the payments in the back and having it on the
Yep.
website, because I think something in dentistry, dentists are so great and offices are really great. But at the same time, I feel as a profession, we're a little bit in the dark ages on a lot of things we do. Like, why do we still honestly send statements to our patients?
Right.
Why is it not paid online?
Right.
Like, it is 2020. Why are
Why are we wasting
Why
pay-
do I even have podcasts where I talk about like, hey, so make sure you send out statements A through J, because offices are doing it. So I love that you talk about innovative ways to do this and to grow as well.
Well, and this has been a big practice builder for my practice,
Mhm.
is because we do a lot of coaching, a lot of role playing in the office, where we will go over the payment process in the back room. So my treatment plan coordinator has a mobile payment device. It's
Yes.
called Clover Flex. It can go from
I
room
love
to room.
Clover.
It's on. Oh, they're amazing.
They're
They're
fantastic.
sleek. They're sexy. They are high tech. They really are the most secure payment portal.
Awesome.
And this one can.
And Zach, I'm going to interrupt you real quick, because you guys, you know that like our advanced level of coaching in offices on the dental team, where I get offices too, is, and this scares some offices, so just know, Zach, you're right in line with what I love, is to turn the back office into mini little treatment coordinators.
Yes.
Or sending TCs back there doing like side-by-side payments right there. It's more private. You have better case acceptance. So this is like totally leading edge of where we lead practices. This
Absolutely.
is literally what I coach offices on. And the fact that you are thinking of that way as a merchant service, because you're a dentist, it's less overhead for your front office. You don't have to hire as many people. So I'm going to put a plug that I see this as such a leading edge conversation, because this is where dental practices, in my opinion, should be headed if you're not
Right.
already there. And like even planting the seed to think like this is huge breakthrough of our offices.
Well, in utilizing this, our collections are at 100%. They're actually at 101%
Oh yeah.
because
Those
of
are
our
sexy
payment
numbers.
plans. And our case acceptance went up 20%.
I believe it.
Because what we found in this, if you want to think about the science behind it, if you keep the patient back in the operatory
Yes.
with that picture of the broken tooth up there,
Yep.
and the treatment coordinator comes back and says, here's your payment plan options. Here's how we can make this treatment affordable for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go ahead and establish payment now, or take a down payment. They swipe the credit card. It's more HIPAA compliant, but it never stops being a clinical decision for
Sure.
the patient,
Sure.
because you walk them up front and it becomes a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe their best friend is out in the waiting room and they don't want them to know that they need a root canal.
Sure. Sure.
And so it's all about, like you said, the privacy, the security of taking the payment in the back. And it allows you to keep your overhead low. You're more flexible adaptive team if every team member can take payments,
Mm-hmm.
or like if treatment changes in the room, be like, oh, you know what, we can go ahead and establish payment now.
Yes.
So,
And I mean, I actually stumbled upon this idea. I was like, oh, I have this great idea. And I came up with it in a pedo office because I noticed pedo practices. When we coach the pedo offices, there's a huge high volume of patient traffic going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, how can I make this more efficient in a pedo practice? Because they've got to like have a mad army up front to have enough people for the masses that are coming through their door. So I started thinking there's got to be a smarter way to do this. And that's where I came up with in pedo offices. That's where I started this idea, having pedo assistants start taking payments in the back. Make it a better patient experience for the parents. You don't have to have your screaming kids out front. They just take care of it. They schedule in the back. Everything is done in the back. And as a dental assistant, I would have loved that because I always have to go up front. Oh gosh, Janice is on the phone. I can't get to her. The patient's sitting here. I need to flip my room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bottleneck that we do in practices.
100%. Yeah.
And like you said, I found when I could, as a dental assistant, I started just advancing myself because I realized, you know what? These patients, I could probably explain this treatment not better than the front office, but I just have clinical experience that a lot of front office don't have. If I could do that, present the treatment plan to them, the only thing I don't know is the insurance. So front office can take care of that part for me. And then if I can take payments in the back, because otherwise like doctors like, hey, we're going to add another surface. And they're like, oh, well, what is this going to cost? And it's like a whole stop and then wait for the front office. It's such a delay and inefficient. And so a lot of assistants don't want to do same day conversions because it just takes too long. Doctors don't want to do same day conversion because it takes too long. Then we have upset patients. So
I
on
love
that long
same-day
rant,
conversions.
like, same. That's how we grew our practice from 500,000 to 2.4 million. Like same day conversion. But I love that you have created a solution because you think about it that way by doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Still not very happy that your car is faster than mine, but whatever.
It's okay. It's all right. I just have a manual and you don't. And I chipped and tuned it and it's 550 versus
480.
It's okay. It's all right. But you
They
have
don't
orange
make my
calipers.
car in manual, so I have excuses for everything.
I like it. No, we did talk about our obsession with fast cars, so that was a fun conversation. People don't know that. They meet me and they're like, they don't expect me to have a chipped and tuned car. And I'm like, oh no, like, I just want to go fast.
I can totally, now that I've like met you, I can totally see it, but I would not have
like,
expected that.
She just loves dentistry and her last name's Dent. Like, that's fun.
So, I did not even realize. I thought that was like a stage name until this weekend. Like because I see you on Facebook, I'm like, oh, that's good. Like she's
So
identifying
cute.
herself as.
She's in dental and it's
Yeah.
Dent. Nope, that's really the last name. And I do make the joke. I was actually engaged 2 other times before my husband. We met on a blind date and he did tell me, he's like, okay, 1, like failed engagement. That can happen to anyone. 2, like that's getting a little weird. He's like, you realize the third person you proposes to, you better say yes or there's something crazy with you. And I was like, first date, blind date, like who is this guy? And
That's
then I
a
married
keeper
him.
because he just leads.
He just led with it,
went
right?
in. Yeah, he went in hard.
Hard. I tell people, I'm like, I was just waiting for a better ROI. I mean, think about it. Or like SEO. You've got the last name Dent. Do you know how great my SEO is just because of that last name with my
It was
profession?
a business decision.
It was
a good
totally
one.
business
Good one.
decision. I mean, his name literally is Jason Dent, which means tooth healer, and he chose to be a pharmacist, not a dentist. It's totally fine. Definite dinner conversation arguments.
Yeah.
It's fine. Still on
Bad
that.
life decisions, whatever.
Okay, so Zach, you were talking about this. Like, you guys are the merchant service for this,
Correct.
and so you guys just have like a very like, okay, what is your rate? You were talking about how all other people, you're like, what is your rate? And nobody, like, what was the other guy? How do you guys overcome that?
How do we overcome that?
Or like, what is your philosophy on that?
So my philosophy is not waiting to see what you're being charged to tell you what I'm going to charge you. So what we do is we do straightforward interchange plus pricing,
Okay.
which means it's not tiered, it's not flat, there's no hidden fees. You see everything that we're going to charge you. And then we like to run a cost savings comparison. So what we do is we have potential clients reach out to us via email or phone. And we make the connection and we kind of lead with, hey, here's our product, here's the platform, here's our pricing. Let's see how that looks with your practice. So you already know our pricing before we even do the comparison.
Okay.
And then we do a cost savings comparison where we show you on the months that you send us your statements for, this is how much you would have saved if you had processed with us instead of the
it.
company that you're
Got it.
processing with.
And this is one of those low-hanging fruits that if you really do have somebody who's better at it, it is great. But I will ask a question, and I don't know this. We didn't talk about this off air, so I hope I'm guessing you're truthful.
I'm nervous.
It's okay. But like a lot of merchant services, they will set you at a base pay at the very beginning. And then what they do is they start tacking on little fees that you don't know about because they're hoping you don't check your statement. So talk to me about that.
We have a rate lock guarantee. As long as you process with us, your rate will not go up. So we have actually the capability of, with the global processor, like First Data, we have a program with them where it's $100 a year per client.
Okay.
And they will never raise your rate because it's normally the global processor that raises the rates. And because our company is big enough, they allow us to do this. So $100 a year, your rate will never go up. So for my practice, like we just looked at it, my partner in the dental practice just looked at it. He goes, do you realize that when we switched to you, like over the past 6 years, we've saved over $20,000.
It's insane. Just in credit card processing fees.
Like that's what we saved. So I'm like,
it's insane.
Like that's a new sensor like every year. That's our team's Christmas party. That's bonuses. You know, and that's what a lot of dentists don't look at because on average, we can save most offices about $150. I know that's on average a month. And they're like, well, that's not that much. I'm like,
but
dude, that's like
compound.
$2,000 a year. Like that pays for your Christmas party. Like, is that, would you be okay if nothing changed with your processing, but I would just went ahead and paid for your Christmas party at the end of the year? They're like, okay. Yeah, sure.
And just to give it tangible in the dental practice, it's like when you give, I used to compare when I'd have people pay up front or whatnot, and it would save them $50. Well, saying $50 on $1,000 crown doesn't feel good. But if I said, hey, $50 is like going to dinner on us, well, instantly those $50 feel better. So for you to say $150 a month doesn't feel great, but $2,000 is a sensor and connecting it. And I'm going to tie that back to you guys for dental like nugget right there of whenever you're talking fees with people, connect it to something that they can relate to get people to understand the savings that they're getting or the benefits, or if insurance is saving them or whatever the discount is, connect it to something they can connect to.
Right.
Because they're much more likely to say yes to you because you just resonate on their same level.
Exactly.
I like that, Zach. Okay. All right. So you guys do merchant services. You have a locked rate, which is fantastic. So you can never add those super weird hidden fees, which you guys, I didn't even know this was a thing, but it's a terrible
Totally
thing.
Totally a thing. Most processors raise your rate twice a year.
And you don't even know that. And you're like, oh,
there's one little sentence at the end of your statement that says, oh, by the way, next month your rate is going up 10%.
But who reads that? Nobody does. Long.
Because you get like lost in the numbers and then you end up just throwing it away and saying, oh.
Exactly. Which is smart. I mean, props to them of having a really cool business model. Like we can't understand it, so we just keep paying it. But I do love that you, and again, coming from Richard, I know that you're a truthful, trustworthy person. Because I trust Richard literally with my life. And so I love that you come from the dentist aspect. You recognize that this is an area that they can lower their overhead, but it's so simple.
Yep.
And I feel like sometimes because things are so simple, we choose not to act on them. But I mean, $20,000 in 6 years, if that doesn't say anything,
right?
Well, maybe you should reconsider.
And the thing I like to point out too is like, not only are we saving you money, we're saving you money and making it easier for you to take payments.
Right.
And taking stress off the front desk. And like, I mean, there's just the and. It's like all these things that you're paying different companies to do for you. So not only are we saving you on the merchant services side, but we're saving you on different third-party vendor side too.
Right. I like that. Okay, so you guys do the merchant services. Do you guys have Clover? Does it go straight into people's software? Like, walk me through some of the benefits you guys do, because I truly don't know.
So we do have we have different platforms that we can use. So we don't have direct integration into any practice management software at this time.
That's fine. Your rates are low.
Exactly. And the only way we can keep them low is by not paying those practice management software as a kickback.
Sure.
Right?
Okay, got it. Okay.
So that's not really high on our priority because I am all about keeping your expenses low. But what we have is we have one-click integration. So it's really the only difference between us and an integrated processor is you have to type in the amount on the actual Clover device.
Okay.
And then in the practice management software.
Got it. Okay.
Whereas in the integrated ones, you have to type it in once in the practice management software, but not on the Clover.
Right. Okay.
But we do have access to the Clover. We also have mobile card swipers that are more cost effective. That's what I really love because we use iPads in our office. And so we have an app that funnels directly into your payment portal. So all your payments just funnel directly into the same funding cycle. And we have an online dashboard where you can actually see in real time the transactions that are occurring.
Very cool.
And payments that take place on the website overnight still go into that next day funding cycle because it's all we have an integrated platform into the bank account. So we have next day funding for all cards.
Awesome.
You get your money immediately.
That's fantastic. And I love, I love the back office accessibility, because I'm always looking for teams. How can we make this easy for teams if it's integrated in there? Because they say complexity is the enemy of execution.
Exactly.
So if it's too hard, they're not going to do it. And so making this so simple so teams really can like knock this out of the park and do it very easily.
If you keep it simple and you practice it, it gives them ownership and confidence in it.
Right.
And so they're going to be more likely to not take no for an answer, you know, and be like, no, we are going to establish this today.
Sure.
You know?
I like
it's just like you were talking. It's like, no, I already know you're going to say yes. How do I get you there?
We did talk before we got on the podcast. This is why Zach came over, was because I said, like, I assume the yes. We've talked about in treatment planning, we assume the yes. So I love that you've just made it even simpler with the payment processing. It's very simple. It's very easy. It's integrated. And there's just and as a practice owner, having the less of stress, having it direct into your next day, I know as a business owner, that's a big deal when you have all those expenses constantly coming out on you.
Especially as startups. We work with a lot of startups that, they are depending on that funding next day.
100%.
But that's why the Clover Flex also works great in startup offices, because it allows them to be lean and mean with their team. You don't have to be heavy at the front desk.
Correct.
Because everybody can take payments. Your hygienist, your assistant, your front desk. Everybody can have multiple hats and work together.
And for those of you offices who are thinking like, I don't want to take payments. Hygienist, let's just paint a picture real quick. Think if you could just take the quick $35 for fluoride, so you don't have to wait up front, because they're already scheduled, they're ready to go, they don't need anything but that one payment. You give an amazing experience for your patient. Dental assistants, when doctor does a same day conversion and you're like, I got to go wait for up front. No, you can just convert it right there. You don't have to wait for the front office to come back. Those precious minutes that we lose, that then we get behind for the next patient, that's where we save on that. Front office, think of not having all those bottlenecks coming up to you. You're able to spend more time with patients who need deeper treatment plans, bigger treatment plans, because all those simple transactions are being taken care of by your back office. Doctors, think of the efficiency and the lower overhead amount of employees you have to have. This is where I love this conversation, because that's what I think of all the time.
It's so multifaceted. That's why, I really look at us not as a merchant services company, but as a solutions company, because we're just trying to help get to that end result of getting the yes from the patient and getting the swipe of the credit card. We do the treatment and we get paid for the treatment. Can't be any simpler, but how do we get to that point? So that's what we're trying to do.
And the fact that your collections are 101%, high five to you.
That's
not
amazing. Me. It's my team. It's totally
but the fact
shout out
that
to my
your team can do that is incredible, because so many offices struggle with collections, and this is a great way I see you can definitely boost those collections. So,
and our overhead's at 42%. So
stop. Those overhead numbers are sexy to me. We aim for good numbers. So nice job on that.
That's fun. Thank you. Yes. I'm super proud of that. So.
Of course, as you should be. That's a bragging moment. Put that up on your wall and be like, 42. What's your number?
What? Mic drop.
That is really impressive. Well, Zach, if people are interested in reaching out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
So I always like to make first contact with the office, because I want to get a feel for what their situation is, so that way I can direct them to the correct sales team member. Because we have some sales team members that are more well-versed in startups as opposed to existing locations, things like that. So the best way to connect with me is via email, because I'm also in with patients throughout the day. So my email is
dentist, guys.
Exactly 4 days a week.
4 days though, at 42%, not bad. We should talk about that on the next podcast.
There you go.
Efficiency at its finest.
It's really nice.
I like it.
So my email address is ZAK@apexpaymentsolutions.com.
I like it. Okay, so email you, and guys, check out his logo. I like it, especially when you explained it to me.
See, now, that's another thing. I actually like yours better than mine. I really feel insignificant next to you.
No, you can't.
As soon as I made the A-Team connection, I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome.
We do need to get some of the A-Team members to come to one of our events. That'd be pretty fun. And I still think we're pretty clever with the DAT. That's a test you had to take to get into school. Clever. But yours, I love that you're talking about, it's like the apex and then the swoosh of the tooth. It's very clever. I like it. I love clever logos. So awesome, Zach. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks you for having me.
Thanks for being
Appreciate
on the podcast. Super nice to meet you. And Dental A Team listeners, reach out to Zach. It can help you a lot. $20,000 And he's not a sleazy guy. I'm in person with him, so it feels a lot better.
Thanks.
That is a definite thank you.
Thank you.
Not was that a compliment? It was a compliment.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, thank you, Zach. All right, Dental 18 listeners, thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental 18 podcast.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our Dental 18 family. Now, we're going to take it to the world. So help us out. Help us positively impact the world of dental by leaving us a review, leaving us 5 stars. This is how we can spread it to the masses and help even more people grow to a better version of themselves. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for being a part of my Dental 18 family.